Chodam Soki Chodam La Jantu Palu Dagni Kyapsu Chin Dagi Chunyan Ki Peso Dangi Jola Penche Sangi Druparsho Chodam Soki Chodam La Jantu Palu Dagni Kyapsu Chin Dagi Chunyan Ki Peso Dangi Jola Penche Sangi Druparsho Chodam Soki Chodam La Jantu Palu Dagni Kyapsu Chin Dagi Chunyan Ki Peso Nangi Drola Penche Sangi Drupa Sho. Not if you want to understand Dharma. Huh?
There was a watermelon.
Oh, wow.
That's right on that page.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hi, Geshe.
Hello.
You speak English tonight, huh?
Yeah. Good. Everybody relax.
Yes.
Good. How's the parking? Do you got your fund?
Snow is melting.
Yeah.
Took the bus.
Anyway, today we are here for why? We need some goal. We have some purpose. I understand it good?
Yeah. Good. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Good.
For purposes, we study for Buddhism. First we study, then we practice, develop our own mind. Right?
Right.
Ready?
Yeah.
Ready?
Okay, I think finishing my words.
Call down to tell me you don't need to. Yeah.
Okay?
It's never started. Yeah.
Then, anyway, we everybody want happiness. No one wants suffering, terrible things, right? But the happiness and suffering, they all come from cause and condition. Okay?
Don't be distracted, you're doing great.
Ready? Good.
What kind of causes and conditions?
Therefore, we have to, what can't cause and conditions? Who did this cause conditions?
We did.
Right?
We did.
I'm sorry.
We do. We create.
Therefore, we don't want to suffering, nor tend to stop to correct the cause or condition or suffering. Thank you.
Yes.
You're on a good job, Josh.
I think so, huh? So, good as soon.
No, he doesn't have this.
Oh.
Anyway, good. Okay. This guy stay here.
This guy.
Sit here. Don't move. If you come to me. Okay.
Okay.
Therefore, first we have to learn how you stop the cost. Right? Cost.
Just
Cause.
Cost.
No fear.
Okay, cost. Yeah, that's the name. I finish. I think that I'm going to check. They want to do nothing. Get it.
So, therefore, the sufferings and happinesses, they come from causes and conditions, right? And that cause and condition is not something created by somebody else, and we experience the result. The result that we experience, the cause for that, and the condition for that is created by ourselves. So in Buddhism, we blame to ourselves for all the bad things that happen to us. And some people may not like that, when they say it's your fault that bad things are happening to you.
No, I'm not fault. Right?
Yeah.
And so that's what we think most of the time. We think it's not my fault because of that person, because of this person, I'm experiencing these difficulties.
Something yogurt, not pet, to a part, never to get him at another 2 can't trade out the something you don't see by the
Sometimes it is possible to happen that we don't do anything, and yet somebody else always gives us a hard time.
Today, by the Chita, Marazo, better was Marazo, Chen, Northern Marazo, coming the Canadian Yogo, better was
So, just to give you an example, how we experience the difficulties because of our own faults.
Marazu, Samba Cadena, nature the Tata is, Marazu, somebody was.
So because we have this thought thinking whatever I do is right and whatever I think is right.
And this sums the Yovala Tenley, Suzu Samba, Suzu Guyagi, good in the Tamu Pacho, Yam the Lega Chenny, Tamu Pacho, the Tamu Suzu, Guade, Macho and Marzana Makawa was.
And because we think like that, and therefore when somebody doesn't give what we want, then we become unhappy. Isn't it like that? When somebody don't do what we want them to do, then we become unhappy, right? So who was at fault at the beginning? It's oneself, right? If we didn't have that thought, thinking whatever I do or whatever I think is right, then when somebody don't do what we want them to do, then we won't be that much of unhappy. And so thinking that whatever I do, whatever I think is right, is mistaken. So if that is not mistaken, if that is correct, then there will not be any problem in the whole world, right? If whatever we think and whatever we do is right, then there won't be any problems, right? And so it is oneself who made the mistake at the beginning, and so by understanding that mistake, one should eliminate that. And And so therefore in Buddhism we say first, you should take care of your mind. That is mainly explained.
배 차라고 하면 다 직사상라고 하나 도보통문라고 하지 삐삐냐라고 하지 직대 코로 사고 있다 직대 다 좋아야 뭐 공통시 이거 있나 대이 바로 노다도 용어인 거래 들어.
And so for example whether it's among the couples, friends, siblings, if there's one person who is angry but other person who is patient, and then there will be less problem.
이제 직받지자라고 단나 가스 컨트롤하지 이제 사고다 인기잖아 나자야 최고에 와이나 다 용다 많이 그래서.
So if there is an equal amount of anger and pride in both parties' mind, then there will be more problems.
배 차셔와 있는 다지 배는 비니로 있나 배는 사람이 지나 이거이나 이게 사람을 지기 야는도 제일 누말 수 야말하나 아니 대만 이빨은 아파야 주려고 딱 제야 된 거랑 데스까지 가오자 그래서.
So for example, like if I were to say something bad to Sarah or blame her for something, and if she didn't respond, then it would become difficult for me to say it again for the second time. So because of her patience, there was no problem among us. And so therefore, mainly, taking care of one's mind is very important.
다 나보 가르쳐 가서나 다 저랑 공부 사고 제요 말했어. 삼방 해봐 제요 말했어. 아니 자도 사고 제요 말했어. 아니 나자 사고 제요 말했어 납도 그래서.
So how do you take care of your mind or control your mind? Is that you should not be too angry, you should not be too jealous, you should not be too pride and so forth.
진짜다. 진짜로 삼보주 수수질라 가지 슈체와요 봐. 다 나시고 못들라 직강이 마도 누가 마요 다 저자 잘했어.
And so how much more of that mind you have, that much more problem you're definitely going to face.
그냥 나제 서우지와이나 나제 친구이나 다 나랑 싸마다 나랑 제셔들이 야 시키는 메시지 뭐 스치 걸랑 말해서 와.
So a person with a strong pride will think that whatever I do, whatever I say is the best, nobody can do or say better than me.
진짜 이번에 다 뒤갑들에 데려오 지나나 다 군이잖아 도서 왔어.
So in if there is someone else like that against him, then those two will be a problem, right?
Then big fire. Maybe put a little oil there. More fire. 어떻게 이번에서 간지마지 수수치고 생각 다 보자게 해야 돼. 내가 쳐야 돼. 다 달라라 그래서 와.
So what do you have to control and what do you have to eliminate? What I just said.
이제 이번 다 가르치 선 예제빵 가르쳐서나 아니 지금 샴바세요 이제세요 같이 싸봐야 보세요 지금 좀 다 펜스하고 싸봐세요 또 솔직히 다야 좀 많다 그래서.
And what you have to increase is the love and compassion and a good heart, a thought to benefit others and so forth.
된지가 샘도 수수고 썸로 따네 수수고 그래 샘대 수수지라 띄워져 맞다 미치가 아기유 compassion 아기유 what's that 그래서 어디더라고 passion 단 무슨 직장에 말했습니다. 그래 이제 다 샤바서 스치다 도둑하라고 줘요 말했더라고.
So this positive state of mind, such as love, compassion, and so forth, has to be developed by oneself. It's not something that somebody else can give it to you, saying like, here is compassion for you, or here is love for you.
되게 somebody 가서 녀야죠 그러는데 저 돌아온 범치킨이 돌아다 라고 말했더라고.
Such kind of mind cannot be bought also. Even if you take $100,000 in your hand, you will not be able to buy that.
Maybe you could go to online. I want to buy compassion. Usually we find everything on Google.
Yeah.
We don't find.
He's African.
So that kind of mind, I don't have to buy pain.
You don't need to use kaka.
Okay.
So you have to develop that mind, and you continue by thinking on it. So developing that kind of good mind and eliminating the bad mind is not easy. So in order to do that, first you have to study about it. And so therefore, you can't change just by studying or practicing for a couple of years. You have to practice continuously by receiving teachings from the teachers and reading the books by oneself and then contemplating on those subjects. And all of you who come here, you're old students and study very well. For example, I came here in 2004, and since then I have seen some people coming here all the time. As long as they're in the area, they always come. They never miss the class. So that's very good. Something to rejoice. And so these 37 practices of Bodhisattva is a scripture or text that explains about the bad state of minds and how do we eliminate them. So first we will just combine all those verses that we have studied before.
Conclude. Please, I'm not say I will finish today, okay?
Don't you deem it?
Yes, sir.
간제 맞이 딩고네 맞지와나 즉 담보되기 아니 조제되게 특이바 되게 좀 담자선 거 그래서.
So the first verse is the homage, and the second verse is the promise to compose the text.
쇼로가 맞이 즉 담보되기 담보되 쇼로가 맞이
쇼로가 담보의 즉 동사.
쇼로가 말에 가서도 쇼로가 것도 단순히 좋지 내가 되는 거.
So anyway, first line in the text.
Homage to Lokeshvara?
Yeah. So that's the homage, and second line.
I do constant homage through my 3 doors to my supreme teacher and
perfect Buddhas. The second part of the homage is the promise to compose.
담보되다 고성이 뒤따대 아니 샤자 예스 니바데 아니 다 같이 내지 시작이 있어.
특제다.
특다 특고 특이라고 특다.
특가마 특한 시시드.
네 니마죠.
니네.
특이라면서. 바꾸니. 네. 그래서 네 특도.
Yeah, one of those two.
쇼로가 제가.
쇼로가 특시가.
뭐 제가 다 쇼로가 제가 지금 손시도.
Oh, sorry.
The first verse is the homage, and second verse is the promise to compose.
다 니바네 다 중이 손에서만 디 주디 제자 쪼라 갈라고 그러나 장점 그 샘께 제가 가지 제가 가려고 그래서 지금 우리 sabject
And so the subject matter, is about how to generate bodhicitta. So in order to generate bodhicitta, what kind of course, in what kind of course do we have to study or practice in order to develop that bodhicitta in our mind?
And the subject ni바데 샘증이 샤바나 된지가 다 제대로 나오나 된지 제라더니 제가 샘증문에 가려야지 다 현실문에 제게야지 샘증이 샤바스.
And so the second, the subject matter or the outline, is about actual bodhicitta.
사실 쓴바데 대지 샘증제니 다데 마냐마다 야 공부를 랍자 가려고 그래. 다 샘증을 랍자세 돼. 사실 쓴들에서.
And then the third outline or third category, is how to maintain that mind, which you have developed without letting it decrease, and what can you do to increase it more and more? And so the whole text, is included. The meaning, the subject matter of the whole text is included in these three categories. And so anyway, and the first, is the cause for bodhicitta. Second, is the actual bodhicitta, and third, is the precepts of the bodhicitta. So once you have developed the bodhicitta or taken the bodhisattva vows, then what kind of practices you should engage in order to maintain that bodhicitta in your mind and not letting it decrease. And so the cause of the bodhicitta, again, is divided into 7 categories. So the first one is difficulties to achieve the profitable rebirth. Abandoning the bad place. Or adopting the isolation, solitude, and then meditating or contemplating on the impermanence, abandoning bad friends, guru devotion, taking refuge. And so these are all explained by each verses, and so you have to be able to tell which verse explains about what.
I don't know.
So you have to know that, otherwise, when you have finished studying, and then if someone were to ask you, oh, what does this verse explain? And then you might say, oh, I don't know. It's possible to say that you don't know. And so last time in the Sunday class we talked about how this, we should allow all the scriptures to present themselves as an instruction to us. And so that section about the Lamrim. So there's a section on prophet and rebirth in the Lamrim. And so when you study about the prophet and rebirth here in this text, then you can apply that. So it's this is talking about the prophet and rebirth. So then you can apply this practice in the Lamrim. And so that verse, that single verse which explains about the prophet and the rebirth, if you expand it, it can be expanded. So expanded to a huge subject matter. And so this is the verse number 1, right? That explains about the prophet and the rebirth, right? And And so that verse explains about the difficulties to achieve perfect rebirth. So there is a lot to contemplate on that, right?
What? Sikte sun samala tikola shemazu pa sanu taam sinde madane ne josna na jota karanda ta soramane taam chago marwas.
So when you read that, then you have to think about those meditations on a perfect rebirth, or the difficulties to achieve perfect rebirth, and so forth, right? If you are not able to apply that into practice, then these teachings are not. You are not allowing these teachings to present themselves as instruction to you.
What? Ta sholoka nipatiga ani yenga ba paasa sungari wa.
And then the second verse explains about abandoning the bad place.
Tende yenga ma dita suzu chi da cha cha na kongro chesa ya. Kanje suzu gewa chewa na pati che ye kare na tende ye pang wa le wa.
So it can also refer to an object, right? So abandoning the object, bad objects or bad place. So the objects that give rise to any kind of delusion. So that is a bad object. So you should abandon those objects. And then also it means like abandoning the place, like your home, abandoning your home. So if you stay at home, you have to do all other things that you won't get any chance to practice Dharma. So therefore you abandon home in order to go to practice Dharma.
아니 쇼라가 선바되겠다. 들이 영감아 영감받 빠노나 나 가로나 다저 예배바 되고 그래서 단 3대 되고 다 신화설이 안 들고 그래서라고 그랬어.
And then so if you abandon abandon the bad place, then what kind of place should you adopt? You should adopt solitude, a place where it's very quiet and conducive for you to do your practices.
다 영감 연도 반에 다 신화설이야 잡고라.
So you abandon the bad place and you go into solitude, into the forest, into a cave, and meditate.
The two will come back, okay?
So anyway, you have to adopt. Solitude place, a place which is very quiet and no much disturbance to do your practice. And so, so that in this time, maybe in this place, it's difficult to find such solitude. So you can think of your own room where you can close the door and be inside quietly. So that can be the solitude.
Maybe not better. Maybe you are practicing that. Can't imagine. Some of the two of that, none of the telling go there. What? Kitchen and kitchen ocean there was. That's also cheap. Come down, come on, and Manzini. What Jamni chiefs will come on, actually. Do you what?
So if you stay in the living room, then maybe you might end up watching TV. If you go into the kitchen, you might end up talking and so forth. So the best place would be if you have a shrine room where you can close the door and then do practice for whatever amount of time you can spend. So that's just an invention, a solitude place, but actually it means, like I said, going into a very quiet place. So you have to adopt that. So you have to apply that.
다 쇼로가 somebody 아니 쇼와데 사실 쇼와 아니 못다와 다들 예배만 때는 오늘 가져오는 다 저는 못다와 공부를 해서 저 못다와 레전드도 공부를 해서 저 못다와 공부를 해서.
So then after going into solitude, what do you have to do? You have to meditate. So what do you meditate on? So there are so many things, and among them, the first thing you should meditate on is the impermanence.
근데 나도 처음 나타봤을 때 지금부터 검토돼 마주리 tuntu다 나타봐 재미페는 마주리 님서 뭔가 와도 저걸 봐.
So you should contemplate on the benefits of meditating on impermanence and then the faults or disadvantages of not meditating or not contemplating on death and impermanence and so forth.
근데 되게 나타봐 검사야 돼. 제가 가와도 나타봐 검대. 저런 게 있지. 가요도 나타봐 검대 그죠 말이야. 소수 밑에대 나타봐 검 걸레스.
And so the impermanence, when we talk about impermanence, everything is, all the functioning things are impermanent, right? So when we say meditating on the impermanence, it means like not meditating on the impermanence of a pillar or of a table, and impermanence of your own life. So impermanence of your life, and then how your life, your friends, and your possessions, your relatives, all these things are uncertain, and they're not unstable, and they can never last forever and be with you all the time. And so how they all will be separated from you. And so you meditate on the death and impermanence. So none of these things will be of any benefit to you at the time of death, when you die. So what will be beneficial for you? If you have created good karma, then that will be beneficial to you. If you have created bad karma, that will be harmful to you. So what do you need? What do you want? You don't want something to be harmful, right? You want to be something that is beneficial for you. So you should engage in good karma or positive actions. And so the purpose of meditating on impermanence is so that your mind will change towards positive actions. And so in order to turn your mind towards Dharma, then you meditate on the impermanence. So you have to meditate on a kind of impermanence that will help to turn your mind towards Dharma. And so if you meditate on the impermanence of pillar or table, that will not help you to turn your mind towards Dharma. And then the fifth verse talks about how you should abandon the bad companies. So the bad company is not someone who comes with knives and spears in their hand, but someone who disturbs you, who cause obstacles in the practice of Dharma, is a bad company. So anybody who forces or encourages you to engage in the non-virtuous action, that is a bad friend or bad company. And so, if you have abandoned the bad friends, then what kind of friends you should befriend with? And it says that you should devote yourself to a spiritual friend. And so then you can engage in the meditation or practice of the good devotion, how you should devote yourself to a virtuous friend or a spiritual friend. And then there are all these points to meditate on, like the benefits of relying or devoting to a spiritual friend, and the disadvantages of not relying or not depending on the spiritual friend, and then disadvantages of relying on them in an incorrect way, and so forth. And so the spiritual friend or virtuous friend is someone who encourages us who encourages our body, speech, and mind to engage in the virtuous actions.
다 저러가 덤바디 다 저런 게다 조방에 받고 바빠서 다 개වි신이다. 오늘 다 저는 짬로 다 가지 짬로에 붙여보세요, 그럼.
And then after that, the next verse explains about taking refuge in the three jewels.
다 짬로에서 다 영화 붙여. 잡순 쪽에 얘다 잡순 로다데 짬로 모자 다 먹고 쉬어요. 저가마 대파 자는 것도 냠이 채워서
So then there's this object of the refuge, right? And how do you take refuge? Why you should take refuge, and so forth. So all these things are included in that verse, and you have to apply all this practice.
아니 된제 잡순들 얘들 소리스나 다 산책해 주 치고 주 괜찮게 해줬는데 다때 물어봐래 다때 조금 물어는 건데들에서 그냥 고들아 잡잖아 다 공부하고 말해야 손 거예요.
And so the object of the refuge are Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. They are the follow the object of refuge. And if you entrust in them, they will never deceive you. So you should always take refuge in them.
아니 공부 가르쳐 봐지나 공부 전화나 좀 말아서라지. 랑도지 내 신청 말아 봤대네. 다 그래서 다만지 제와 있나 다 공부 제와된 노래 말이야 들어와. 다 나게 들어와.
So how do they help you, or how do they protect you? Is by revealing what is to be practiced and what is to be abandoned. And if we do exactly as it's been taught or revealed by them, then we will never go through sufferings.
어디 대책이 나도 안에 다 상주고 샘게 제정 와서 다 저러나 봐 대단 그래서 왔어.
So after that, it's all about the cause for generating bodhicitta, training in the cause to generate bodhicitta.
다 상주고 샘게 그거는 더 강한 행동으로 들어.
So if you wish to generate bodhicitta, then you have to proceed all these practices before generating bodhicitta.
다 사실 이봐 아니 다 아니 상주고 샘이 시작해서 그러와. 대래서 그러와.
So those are all the practices prior to generating bodhicitta, and then after that comes the actual bodhicitta.
대 상주고 샘 제대 때라야 그도서지 제대다 된담 상주고 샘 제대 이해가 되죠.
Then that bodhicitta, the actual bodhicitta, is again there are two types: the conventional bodhicitta, how to generate conventional bodhicitta, and how to generate ultimate bodhicitta.
근데 그도서지에서 가르라고 해서 나പ്പെടു나다 샘정문에 대 샘지 터주는 라는 뭐야도 봐서 사실 딱 사실 공부도 샤냐베 다 상주 샘바수 지지는 로들라다 그도서지라 그래요.
So the conventional bodhicitta, is the actual bodhicitta that is the actual bodhicitta, the mind that wishes to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. And so that's the actual bodhicitta within the continuum of all the bodhisattvas. So that's called the conventional bodhicitta.
대동세제해야 돼. 상선 포비 동반 인가서 도비 상선 포비지지. 근데 다 동인가서 도비로 들었다 그래서.
And so and then ultimate bodhicitta actually is referring to the wisdom relies in emptiness, conjoined with the bodhicitta in the continuum of the Arya or superior bodhisattvas.
It's good.
Say again.
Ultimate bodhicitta. So it's the wisdom relies in emptiness within the continuum of the Arya bodhisattvas.
Right? Remember? You forget?
Yeah, I wasn't clear on that, so that's why I was listening.
근데 다때 단다 상주 생기 시험 다때 니 시험인데 와서 니 시험 그래서 와 그도서 시험 받는 대도서 시험 니지 다 담보 그도서 시험 되라다야 다 깨워 춘지 치었으면 지지 다 남냠 렌트서 가는 것도 지 다 가봐줘서 숨이 그래서 와 깨워 춘지 치었으면 담보 그도서 시험 되라 다 깨워 춘지 치었으면 그다 생겨서 숨이 그래서 와
중에 있으면 계속.
겨우 중요도 안 되게 다 집어를 셈쳤음지.
And so then in the way to generate bodhicitta, how to generate bodhicitta, or the mind of generation, of the small scope, medium scope, and great scope.
This one is how much each. Tawachum Shanchu Sem Jetala, Pajikona, Pajikon Mary. She does Sem Jetados, of course, a job. Some thousand give it to Johnson. You know, Shanchu Sem Jetal loved it. I shall chew Shanchu Jetal, cut love gentlemen.
Loved it, which one of it?
Lush. Then I choose children and the work. Candidate,
you love it.
give it to the chest. The Baji Kajis, good to see the Baji love you the matter, some chess last, some not answer large of local.
So, I don't know, I mean, in the text it says that how to generate the mind of the small scope, medium scope, and great scope. So usually when you say mind generation, it's usually referring to the generation of the mind of enlightenment, and that is usually referring to bodhicitta, but again, it's strange to say bodhicitta of small scope. I don't know if there's a bodhicitta of small scope, and so I don't know if we can say that. Anyway, it says how do you generate the mind of the small scope, medium scope, and great scope.
That is look at Javati, can they shed the soccer and so some Dumalosova? That the bomb give a cheap agent away by her, they embark in matter, that the bomb give a chair of Mares.
And then in verse 8, it says that all the sufferings that you experience is the result of the negative karma. So, in order to be free from the sufferings, we should not engage in the non-virtuous actions. And so that is talking about the small scope path, just as it is explained in the Lambda. So there's a lot you can contemplate on the small scope path. So you should contemplate just like that here at this point. So when you hear this about how do you abandon, why you should abandon the non-virtuous actions, why you have to abandon that in order to be free from the sufferings and so forth, then you should be able to comprehend that, oh, it's talking about the practice of the small scope, so I should apply this into this practice. So if you know that, then you're able to allow all the scriptures to present themselves as an instruction.
다 저러고 거기가 아니 다 깨운 중 상담사 가지 아니 라다 무슨 기타 대화 용시와는 다 대화 때문에 돼서 때려다 다 와도 그래서
And then verse 9 emphasizes especially on the sufferings of the upper realms, like the human gods and demigods. So even though you experience some happiness is there, but those happiness are not stable, they don't last forever, and how they turn into suffering and so forth. So I mean, contemplate on that. And so there the experience about the path, the practice of the medium scope.
다 쇼로가 째와디 다디 깨워 친구 남도 송서만 달라야 삼바 상주조도 sem 깨와다 조와 상주 공바 사진이 송거를 들어와.
And so then the verse explains the path of the great scope. The word explains about the bodhicitta. So generating the mind and then meditating on that.
다 담보 쇼로가 째와디 나쁜데 와서 아니 가는 날까지 다 상주에서 아니 그래 젠데면 어떤지 보냈다 상주에서 저기도 송거를 했으니 담보대.
So in the verse 10 explains about how to generate bodhicitta. So having the thought to generate bodhicitta and actually meditating on the topics to generate bodhicitta. So here it explains about meditating on the sevenfold cause and effect instructions.
다때 마음에 와서 그잖아. 이제 그 삼도 따고 있어. 일단 이제 내려오는 말이야.
So there's a lot about that, right? So you have to meditate or contemplate on all those forms. And then actually meditating on the actual bodhicitta, there are two types, like meditating on the actual conventional bodhicitta and meditating on the actual ultimate bodhicitta. So earlier we differentiated those two kind of bodhicittas, right? The ultimate bodhicitta and the conventional bodhicitta. And then meditating on the conventional bodhicitta, it says in the so in the meditative equipoise, you exchange and equalize yourself with others, and during the post-meditative equipoise, and how you take all the adverse conditions, adversities or adverse conditions into account. And so in the verse 11, it explains about how to generate bodhicitta through the practice of exchanging and equalizing self with others. And now then, during the post-meditative equipoise, how you can take all the adverse conditions into account. Transform all the adverse conditions into a part. So that is again divided into like 10 subcategories. And so when you are meditating on bodhicitta, there will arise many obstacles. So all these obstacles, all these adverse conditions, you turn into a cause to generate bodhicitta. And so what I'm telling now, is just a brief a gist, which verse explains about what.
제다 잘라도 던져 던져기 소소라 지가리 다 요바와 던져 단다 소소 개와시 발라지 받으시겠나 다 대파죠 마루죠 레세로요.
And then verse 12 explains that if gain and so forth, so like if you are gaining something, or if that becomes obstacle to your practice, then how you should give up, the gain and so forth.
아니 쇼로가 이바티 다 자오 람데 제비 냠내서로 야소를 다 자요 거로 다 자오로 어떤지 가서 소소 있네 집에다 같이 타대서 오건 거 그래 들어와시 트레이너가 들어와시
Double verse.
자오 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 다 람데 제로서 람제 냠내서
And so and then the verse 13 explains about how you can take again, bad friends, people who cause obstacles in your practice, and how you can take that into a path. So if someone were to cause a lot of problems to you, and instead of getting angry towards that person, says, oh, by getting angry and by doing all these bad things, and that person created so much negative karma, as a result, this person is going to experience a lot of suffering. So thinking about the suffering that person is going to experience, then you develop this strong compassion, wishing that person to be free from that suffering. And so you develop, instead of getting angry towards that, towards that person, you develop compassion towards that person.
아니 쇼로가 집시바 되겠다. 문념바 람체베다 냠레세로 그래서 문념바.
And then the verse 14 says like taking the unpleasant sounds, the unpleasant things into a path.
He's terrible,
So if somebody goes to say something unpleasant about you, to yourself or to other people, and then you don't become angry. So instead of becoming angry, you take that, make that to become a condition for you to engage in practice of Dharma. So as an ordinary being, so we will be angry immediately, right? If someone will say unpleasant things about us. And so if such thing happens, then we should make sure that we don't get angry. And then in the verse 15 says you take the harsh words into a path. So when it says take into a path, that means make that to become a condition for you to engage in the practice of Dharma. So if someone were to say harsh words to you, then you take that to become a practice of Dharma. So these all are needed. I mean, all these practices that I mentioned are needed in order to generate bodhicitta. So do you think you're up to that? You're up for that?
I don't think so. If someone says, I never did this. No, that's Shologa, Judubatiga, Lodrup. Talam Javana, Suzupa Yaporo Javana, Telachi young Yele, two Yabucha, the judge in the worship. Tata, Suzu, Tenio, and I am. That's what they were punching, but much of what said.
And then also in the verse 16 it's mentioned about how if you were to do something good for others, and respond to your kindness, if they were to treat you in a bad way, then I mean, of course, as an ordinary being, we become angry or frustrated very easily. But instead of becoming angry, we think in a way so that becomes a practice of Dharma.
Some kids think that. Pamaso, college and passion, and Buddhist, Pamela Yabuchek, the training you.
So usually, sometimes the kids they do that, or your children will do that to the parents. So parents, no matter how good they are towards the children, sometimes the children they hate their parents, or do bad things to parents. So it's like that. So even if you do something, even if you do very good to the other person, either it's your child or somebody else, but that person always treat you in a bad way, then instead of becoming angry towards that person, you meditate on compassion and love towards that person. And then verse 17 says that you should take criticisms into account. So if someone were to criticize you, then instead of becoming so sad and depressed, you think of that as a condition for you to practice Dharma. And then verse 19 talks about taking the 18 expression into a path. So if you are facing a lot of obstacles, so many bad things happen to you, like falling sick, or no matter how good you try to do, you cannot really do good and so forth. So instead of becoming discouraged, feeling sad and discouraged, you make that condition for yourself to even practice more dharma and so forth.
다 솔로가 그쪽고 쪽에다가 다 지금 땀 년다다 좋아. 근데 아직 가슴이 가서 좋아이나 아직 대여비가 요바라 때문에 아주 소소하게 하셔봐라. 다 빠지잖아. 말했을 때 니보에 말해서 와. 그래서 와.
And then verse 19 talks about even if you have so much fame and praises from others, then these things has no essence. So that should you should not allow that to become an obstacle towards your practice of Dharma.
아니 솔로가 얘기 다 셔달람 제가 다 소소 가정하지 수수 나기 자원문에 수수 나기 자원들이 대 돌아치고 그래서 그래. 아니 많이 다 공부하고 제일 말해서 봐. 잠바다 이제 마대기 수수지 셔달람 맨날 자고 그래서 봐.
Then verse 20 explains about how you should take the hatred into account. Hatred is the inner enemy, and you should wage a war against it with love and compassion.
다 솔로가 이제 짜지대가 근데 다 내자라면 제가 와서 같이 소소가 차페에 간지나 때까지 놓으시나 다 같이 근데 작은 거 세워도 집안에 이런 거 내가 말해서 다들 차에 말해서 와.
And then verse 21 explains about how you should take attachment into a path. So no matter how much you have all these things, these objects, they're not reliable. They're like a dewdrop on the blade of grass, which will not last forever. And so everything is like that. So therefore, you should not be so attached to them.
근데 다 나도 같이 깨먹어도 나도 개와이 말한테 깨먹어도 왔어. 선 먹이에 나올 파 먹이고 싶어 꼬리야 같이 딱 깨먹어 저기도 왔어.
And so there are many conditions like this to turn our mind towards non-virtuous actions, right? Non-virtuous thoughts.
근데 갑라야 근데 그래 깨는데도 근데 잠이 좋다 그래. 쇼마라 때다 수수치 개와냐면서야 돼. 다 유샤나 지금 냠로는 다 제메레서 와.
And so because of these conditions, when these conditions rise, you should not allow these conditions to become cause for you to not practice Dharma.
그런 거 삼삼치 강에 몸을 전해야만도 샘시도 응도 와서 샘시더라.
So sometimes we become discouraged to engage in the practice of Dharma or study Dharma when we face many difficulties, right?
아니 대갑다 자수치 그래서 와.
So so during those times you have to be very careful.
삼삼만도 지금 담년도 치보는 같이 대표적 치보잖아요. 아침마다 다 뒤터 가터는 야기와 전도 왔어.
And sometime again when we become famous or receive so many praises, and when we have all these good things like wealth and so forth, then again we forget to practice Dharma because we're too happy.
어떤데 다 어디 가야 다 간제 다 깨면 되게 갔다. 치료도 다 남는 가마다 손대게 해서 와.
And so these verses expressing about the practice of the medium scope, great scope, and so forth.
다 니바 그래. 대담 상치성 공부 다 단다도 그것을 좀 검사해 맞아 다 대나서 좀 검사해 와. 니바 대담 상치 공부라서.
So that was meditating on conventional bodhicitta, right? And now second is meditating on the ultimate bodhicitta.
아니 대라 아니 냠자도 쪼자 공부다 제답다 차당 이게 다 대전 거 봐서 와.
And during the meditative equipoise, how you meditate on the emptiness or the separation of the elaborations, and during the post-meditative equipoise,
제답다니 차단게 얘기했다 대신 거 봤어. 잡아셔도 담아셔도 얘 답대말 거 봤어.
How you negate seeing the objects of the attachment and anger being a true existence.
근데 나 술로까지 짠이 되겠다 그러나 다가니 또 많이 거서 그래서
And so anyway, verse 22 explains about how to meditate on emptiness.
very true meditation happiness. 로 대치다 아니 이반 냠자도 자동에 그 맞다라야 아니 차열할 때 마시 먹고 봐도 나열할 때 마시 먹고 봐도 다시 이상을 했어. 차배 차사 어제도 나는 차배 차바제가 일하는 대신 거 봐도 아니 다 나이제가 일하는 대신 거 이상을 했어.
And then during the post-meditative equipoise, and how you meditate on the object of attachment, to be lack of true existence, and how you meditate on the object of anger or hatred, to be lack of true existence.
다 술로가니 짜슴들하다 얘도 얘당 쳐봐놨어. 다 간지 먼저 잡아서 제일 수주고 얘도 뭐 예지는 전에 다 잡아 제기로 왔어.
And so usually, we have attachment towards something, right? Because of meeting that object. When we meet with that object, we see it or smell it, touch it, and so forth. So when we perceive the object, then we have an attachment towards that object, right?
근데 된저가 차이지다가 얘들은 차비 아니 다 되어서 맞대. 다 약하게 자나지데 조고 얘도 그래 들어.
And so that kind of pleasure that comes from meeting or coming into contact with that object, is like a rainbow in the summertime. It will disappear very quickly.
이제 다른 말아서 지금 지땡이 딱 대화라 롱션이 다 숨을 좀 넣어서 가지 말이.
And so it's like that, right? So we can never be satisfied. So we never be satisfied with the happiness or pleasure, the worldly pleasure that we experience.
이제 대화로 쉬어봐야나 대화도 쉬었네 깨진 입어서 많이 가서 갈가고 또 가지 동안 나오도 왔어.
And so when we experience that kind of pleasure, after some time, then we will become tired of those things, right?
내가 가서 칼라사는 당고 저것도 동아이 도와서 저것도 와요 동아시.
So like first, like for example, when we're eating, first we have the suffering of hunger, right?
다 칼라스네 진디 저것도 와요 동아도 막 시월다야 칼라사치는 가서 나요도 왔어.
So first, you're hungry and then you go eat. So that food, the food that you eat, helps you to be free from the suffering of hunger. But again, when you keep on eating that food, that itself becomes suffering of eating too much again, right?
대면은 가서 칼라 가래는 싹 가래 수수 사삼에다 사야가 오차에 놓았어. 비차로 오자.
And also, on the other hand, we don't have that freedom to eat whatever we want to eat. Right?
I mean this. I mean it. 내가 가진 가져서 지금 직대게 제가 저한테 못하게 와나 담보 못하 매비 동아 못하 몇사디 다 못하 매가 동아 세가다 야 년에 기진이 반에 빌모테 야 동아 용도 왔어.
And so, first, again, the other example, like when you don't have a car, you have the suffering of not being able to get to the places that you want easily. But then when you have a car, you can get to those places easily. But you have to pay the bill for the car. And then it becomes suffering of having to pay the bills.
야 지지 조보조모로 매와나 담보 매비 가라 매비 동아. 이것은 뭐라 야 따와 맞대 약간의 지장이 왔어.
And so same with the relationship. When you don't have a partner, you feel lonely again. You have the suffering of feeling lonely and suffering of not having a partner. Again, when you have a partner, then there's a suffering of not getting along with the partner. Different views and so forth.
간시 마치 썸로 따이는 것도 제대야 집어째래 시디고 집어째래 가서 다 그래 고야미하고 되잖아
So if we really think carefully, then we are born alone and we die alone. So we don't really need partners, right?
Then I'm not saying everybody become monk or non, okay? I still just I'm joke, okay? And this is a kanji majing as on Jitangi develop Kasim Kashishowa in Nayanchi. That tempo down. Some of your Marias over there.
So anyway, no matter how much we experience these worldly pleasures, it can never last forever, or it's never stable.
If we want to buy a house. Before we have something, we don't have a house. After we buy, every month all bills coming. But I tell you, kanji maji, tanga the pay the jam all takas, no more love at the kanzi, so chabache the power, yes, the chabashuchi,
So there are many examples like that. Anyway, you should abandon attachment. You should not have so much attachment.
So you pala tene so gewachi bate ta nyambla na ta so gewal pachi chi ari chungna ta sabu che ore ko.
So if you have those attachments, then they may cause you to decrease your virtues and practices, and so you have to protect that.
Dele macha chundola chi motanyo chomare kambanyo nyoya mare chi ta dopotom chi amar che yo mar labko mare throya.
So that's the reason. Otherwise, I'm not saying that you should not, have a house, you should not have a car, you should not have any partners.
That they got another dress. That did when the light did not to Sholoka. That Diana. She bought the messenger. She don't see that. The college here.
They got both.
Because Diana Deje.
And so that's where we went up to. So now the actual verse that we're going to start from today is the verse which explains about negating, seeing how the object of hatred, lack of true existence.
They Sholoka that they Sholoka Jumani and that's just somebody. And they shan't you send me. Laja la Bas, Laja did that Pachu took my hand over it.
And so this is the last verse on the actual bodhicitta, and then after that comes the precepts on the bodhisattva or bodhicitta practice, how to maintain and or increase more and have not to decrease and so forth. So those practice entails or the practice of 6 perfections and so forth. And so now you have a rough idea of what each verse explains about, right? And so if possible, you should apply this to the Lambda practice. And so if you are able to apply this, each of these verses into practice, then that becomes all the scripture, allowing all the scriptures to present themselves as an instruction. So the practice, when we talk about Dharma practice, it is trying to do what is explained in the scriptures. And so if you can allow the actions of your body, speech, and mind, just as it is explained in the Dharma, then that's what we call Dharma practice. And so where it says in the scripture, where it says that you should not have attachment, you see if you can try to minimize the anger as much as possible. And where it says you should not have jealousy, and then you try to minimize the jealousy as much as possible. Where it says you should not have pride, arrogance, and then you try to minimize the arrogance as much as possible. So doing that is called practicing Dharma. So now please read the verse 24.
All forms of suffering are like a child's definite dream. Holding illusory appearances to be true makes you weary. Therefore, when you meet with disagreeable circumstances, see them as illusory. This is the practice of Bodhisattvas.
아니 당나도 동안 나서 뭐 보이도 왔어. 근데 동안 나서 봐 탐질. 그봐. 배나 물음지. 딱 보셔와 나지 그러나. 다 내가 맞아 봐. 대다 봐 맞아 봐. 영은 맞아 봐. 소소 다. 그래. 전나도 봐 따네. 다 수도 가서 말해. 다 주소소 지금 생각 봐. 쉬우지. 자와 친구다 쉬. 내가 친구지 다 따네 아니 누가 좀 저기서 말아 아니 수지 센터 이 자체로 그래서 봐 근데 아 그나 시가 나지고 동안도 줘 다 간을 따오르잖아 아니 물론 내가 나도 물론 미네 다 보시게 동안도 그냥 그러 왔어 들으러 싸먹고 그래서 봐 간제 다른 건 말아 대바 맞아 다 따고 그래서 봐 근데 마치 동안에 다 수수 샘천이 다 수수라 강하게 냐게 그래서 샘타체도 그래서
샘타체
타체다 샘을 심으로 아타체는 샘 심으로
So, like it says, the sufferings of the birth, the aging, sickness, and death, you should see like the sufferings of losing a child in the dream. And so when you lose the child in the dream, it's not that suffering you experience is not real, right? So when you wake up, you say, "Oh, it was just a dream. I didn't really lose my child." So thinking like that, and so this is not truly existing. Just like the suffering of losing a child in the dream.
대다 간제 즉 소설하지 제가 나지도 트라이브 동화까지 쇼와 있나요? 다들 건 지당이 취미를 깨트 정말은 냐 취미를라고 삼이 즉 마음에도 따서나까지 다 동안 영영 그랬어.
And so that's one way of thinking. The other way of thinking is like, or usually, if you accept the suffering, and so when you experience this suffering, and it says, "Oh, this is unnatural for me to experience this suffering." Once I'm born, I have to die, so that is natural, and it's not something very huge, and not something that only I experience, and so forth. So if you think like that, in a way you accept that suffering, then it becomes less suffering.
대다 빼나 밀림랑도 더 밀림당 버려서 다 보지 제쇼서니 가오쇼. 근데 제와데 시선선은 뭐가 좋아하나요? 하고 야서서 막고 배째요 말이 끼어가 와도 중앙에 등하다면 다 공부는 나지를 와서 다 데려오다고 해서 주담시.
And so just like in the dream, you dream of giving birth to a child, and then you dream, you become, I had a child, and you feel very happy, and then again, the child is born, and then the child dies in the dream, and then you have the suffering of losing the child, and this is all happening in the dream, but you still feel like, you feel the grief of losing the child, but then when you wake up, it says, "Oh, it was just a dream. I didn't really lose the child," and so forth. So, so all the sufferings that you experience, you should see like that. And so all the phenomena, everything you should see like a dream, like an illusion.
그러나 말아서 척박 소소라 척박 강은 세상에 얘들아 직강이 쉬나 말아서 제가 누가 망쳐고 왔어.
And so whenever we face difficulties in relation to the object to which we are more attached to, then we experience more suffering, right?
근데 오늘 저도 들린다.
Is that right?
차역이 척박에다가 역시 가르치는 체들은 지금 욕다고 쉬나 말아서 세상 강에 마르고 왔어.
So whichever object towards which we are towards which we have more attachment, if we face difficulties with that in relation to that object, then we feel more suffering, right?
근데 대수도 잡아도 제거해서 다 거기 강에 쉬는 거기 이게 파져올라 강에 쉬어올라 때는 수저를 누가냐고나 다 수저 제가 예매 수락 강에 집어러 왔어.
And so So that's because of the amount of attachment you have towards that object, right? You know? If it is not the attachment, then you should feel the same amount of suffering when when a stranger is in pain, versus when your father or your child is in pain.
배 차셔봐이나. 말도 수족은 대행이 무지라 강이 쇼하던 내가 메시 무지라 강이 쇼하나 수족이라 싸움으로 가려고도 수족이라 지금 마대와로.
So, for example, just like I said, if somebody's in difficulties, in problem, in suffering, like someone that's related to you or someone that's not related to you, that's a difference, right? In terms of the feeling you have towards them.
수족 내가지나 my family, my relatives, 생각도 돼. 수족 나한테 기대는 수족 강이 무슨 양심도 왔어.
So when your relatives, your family is in a problem, then you feel more suffering, right?
대당기 담보 말하면 다 내제 나세들레면 그랬어. 그다 누가 강을 채운 거더라.
So that's because of I and mine, right? So all the bad thing comes from that.
저 매대로 지셔나. 그게라 가서 지셔지. 이게라 가서 지셔야 생각도 되게 왔어.
And so if something bad happens to someone that is not related to us, then we just sit there quietly, without any feelings, saying, "Oh, that such and such thing happened to that, such thing happened to that," and so forth, right?
와다때네 간지 맞이 지 소속의 차에 잡아채서이나 다 잡아주셔야 돼요. 말해서 대체와는 소소로 내가 그랬어 그랬어.
And so we should not be so attached to the objects that we have attachment to us. And if we do, then that will harm us more.
Okay. Let's stop here. We have questions. Okay. I have to give exam. Which one question? What should we do if someone were to say bad things about us in the midst of many people? Instead, what should we do if someone were to say bad things about us in the midst of many people? Okay? Anyone understand?
Yeah.
Okay, come on.
It's verse 14, and it says, with a loving mind, speak of your good qualities.
I thought there's several verses that could apply. I agree with that 14. It's like 14 transforming blame into the path, and believe it or not, I also thought 4. The whole idea of being mindful of permanent. I'm just reading my notes here. Being mindful of impermanence, we must take the essence from this life each day and try our best to fulfill, a meaningful Dharma purpose and not be too vulnerable to these little ups and downs. Take it as a lesson.
What she says is the right.
Oh, okay. So is it wrong to think that there are several verses that make it right?
Yeah, you can apply that to many places, but the actual verse from where it comes is the verse 14.
But 15 says, though someone may deride and speak bad words about you in a public gathering, looking on him as a spiritual teacher, without giving him respect, is that a wrong answer?
So yeah, yours is right also, but what his answer? Yeah, his answer is the best is if you can meditate on patience.
Okay? Very good. Thank you.
I mean, that's really 14 and 15 combined is how to meditate on patience when someone criticizes you.
Okay. What is the root cause of praising? Praising oneself. Oneself and belittling others.
Let him go.
Okay. What is the root cause of praising oneself and belittling others? Okay. Okay, who's volunteering? Maybe not you, not other one. Okay.
I would say pride, except that's part of the question, so I'm not sure that that's...
Okay. Then, who?
Attachment.
Cherishing.
Self-cherishing. Self-cherishing.
Then, everybody close?
I said unhealthy preoccupation with the self, because the self ultimately doesn't exist independently and cannot be found.
Everybody close. But I think Alice is right.
Alice, right?
So that's because of cherishing oneself.
Me, I'm the best one. Another chodo
But what you said is also false in that. You can have that because of the attachment, because of pride also.
Okay, then what should be your
Response.
Response when someone does many undesirable things. What is it? Undesirable things to you. Okay. Okay, who?
Cherish him like your mother.
Okay. Just say, yeah?
When someone does many undesirable things, first have compassion, because they're like a sick child. Then from that compassion you can generate patience, and you can pray for them to be healed, and you can treat them with love and affection.
Yeah, this is great. You was combined everything. Very good. And other answers? Okay.
I like 4 for this. The second part, what it said, again, just keeping a focus of, just the last 3 lines. Consciousness, the guest will leave the guest house of the body, let go of this life. This is the practice of Bodhisattva. Kind of just focus on, lasting things.
Which was
Number 4. I like number 4 for this one as well.
you need to put some for number 4.
I don't know. Someone
That's your
meant a lot to
response.
me. Yeah.
That's your response.
Is that your answer?
All 4 are on time.
Okay.
Yeah, finally.
What relationship this question?
4.
I don't even remember what the question was.
Because if you think about it, when somebody does undesirable things to you in this life, it pushes you out of your comfort zone.
Yeah,
Take it as a practice, it pushes you out of your comfort zone, and it almost forces you to say, you know, when you're comfortable, you're well fed, you're rich, you're whatever things, you're happy, you're not gonna be so motivated to think about what's ultimately important. But when you're pushed out of your comfort zone, when somebody's sticking you, it makes you think what's important. I don't know. Worked for me.
Yeah, what you said makes sense.
She's very good, compose everything. But my answer is not this one. that means what's it? Not your answer is not right.
But doesn't mean your answer is not right.
Doesn't mean your answer is not right. Even if we read one verse, non-people together, they different understand everybody, you know.
So what Geshe said is that if you think whatever they say, you know, it doesn't have any essence. Whatever they say, they can just say anything they want to say, or they can do anything they want to do. It has no essence. If you can think like that, then you're taking that into a path. So by thinking that it has no essence, then you don't allow your mind, you know, to be disturbed or to, you know, be sad and so forth. So thinking like that, it has no essence. You know, whatever they are doing or whatever they are saying has no essence.
Not take too serious. Now, I love her answer. She do a lot of course compose from here all together. But you also good. Okay? Then
We show on the comfort zone.
this is what third one, right? Third one, Shiva. What is the practice just in mainly in district? Indicate when we refer to the example, just like to mother was a taught her child who is sick. Okay. Bruce, you got it? You understand? No?
Say again.
Oh, okay.
You didn't have a question?
What
I don't have it in
practice?
front of me. I read it.
What practice? If mainly in the what's it? Indicate when we refer to the example, just like the mother taught her child who is sick. You got it?
Yeah.
Okay. Who's- Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. I had 16 for this one, not 4.
4 times 4.
This one's yet well said. Basically, how to deal with those who cause us discomfort and pain. Just practical how to respond.
So what are the practices though?
16.
Are you pushing again out of the comfort zone?
Well, yeah, that's real extreme.
Yeah, but what is the practice?
Right. Cherishing him or her. I think
But what does that mean? Cherish him especially. What practices?
when I saw this, take him as a teacher, because that person, believe it or not, is like providing you with instruction of how to, you know.
What is the example? What example are we talking about here?
Exchanging self with others.
Example of mothers
With their
towards her child who's
Yeah.
sick, right?
Yes.
What does she have towards her child who's sick?
Love and compassion.
That's it. That's what it's talking about. What practice does it refer to? Or what practice does it indicate, you know, when we refer to the example? What practice does it indicate when we refer to the example of a mother towards her child who's sick?
And you're saying love and compassion practices.
He said what you think.
No, I'm asking if that's what he said.
Right.
I think 16 fits that. My mind. 16 fits that.
Well, yeah, but
he's asking you to describe
What's the practice?
What's the practice?
so what is 16 telling you to do? And it says cherish him specially. So what does that mean? That means
Yeah, what
the
does it
practices of love and compassion are what cherish him specially means, which is verse 6. 16, sorry.
Are you sure?
Can't think more. I'm sure of it. I'm sure of it. I know. I feel so confident in that answer.
But what, Howard, yeah, we're not disagreeing with you. We're asking you if 16 is the verse it's referencing. And he's saying, what is the practice indicated? So 16 says, cherish him specially, like a mother does her child stricken by sickness. So when he says cherish him specially, what practices do you do to cherish someone specially? And the answer is to cherish someone specially like a mother is to practice love and compassion.
Love and compassion.
Yeah, so they're agreeing with you. They're just getting more detail onto that.
Are you sure? Serious? 100%?
Yes.
Final answer.
Final answer.
Yeah, there is. That's about the DJ.
Yeah, he just won $4,000.
This was fun homework, actually. Good stuff. I had a lot of notes on this.
Good. I very appreciate, very good job.
Thank you, Geshe.
Thank you, Geshe.
We will be a lot very soon. if you guys say, what you study, if you do practice assembly, then very easy. No one catch us. No one catch you guys. No me. Okay, thank you. I'll stop here. Okay.
Starting on page 8 with short mandala offering, followed by verse 4, all in Tibetan. Yeah?
Yeah.
From my two collections, vast is space that I have amassed from working with effort at this practice for a great length of time. May I become the chief leading Buddha for all those whose mind's wisdom eye is blinded by ignorance. Even if I do not reach this state, may I be held in your loving compassion for all my life's manjushri. May I find the best of complete greater paths of the teachings, and may I please all the Buddhas by practicing. Using skillful means drawn by the strong force of compassion, may I clear the darkness from the minds of all beings. With the points of the path as I have discerned them, may I uphold the Buddha's teachings for a very long time. With my heart going out with great compassion in whatever direction the most precious teachings have not yet spread, or once spread have declined, may I reveal this treasure of happiness and aid. May the minds of those who wish for liberation be granted bounteous peace, and the Buddha's deeds be nourished for a long time. By even this great course to enlightenment completed due to the wondrous virtuous conduct of the Buddhas and their children. May all human and non-human beings who eliminate adversity and make things conducive for practicing the excellent paths never be parted in any of their lives from the purest path praised by the Buddhas. Whenever someone makes an effort to act in accordance with the tenfold Mahayana virtuous practices, may they always be assisted by the mighty ones, and may oceans of prosperity spread everywhere. Page 10, long life verse for His Holiness, followed by page 17 for Lama Zopa Rinpoche.
Third verse.
Sorry, third verse. In that snow mountain encircled land, source of every benefit and joy, may Lord Tenzin Gyatso Chen Prezi remain in life till samsara's end. Page 17. You, who uphold the subduer's moral way, who serve as the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Majjhima's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplishes magnificent prayers honoring the three jewels, Savior of myself and others, your disciples, please, please live long. And will we do all the extra prayers?
Needs to be 14.
Page 14.
Oh, okay. Page 14, prayer to always meet with perfect teachers. Your form embodies all Buddhas. Your nature is that of Vajradhara. You are the root of the three jewels. Homage to you, O Gurus. In short, I seek your blessings of protector to be cared for by you from birth unremittingly throughout all my lives, and thus to become your chief disciple, holding every secret of your body, speech, and mind. O Protector, please grant that all be auspicious for me to be foremost among your very first circle of disciples, wherever you manifest Buddhahood, so that all my temporal and ultimate wishes without exception may be effortlessly and spontaneously fulfilled. In all my lives, never separated from perfect Gurus, may I enjoy the magnificent Dharma. By completing the qualities of the stages and paths, may I quickly attain the state of Vajradhara. Furthermore, in life after life, may I, pleasing him in return, be forever fostered by an accomplished Mahayana spiritual master, the source of every virtue of this world and beyond. In his care, may I acquire in him a firm, unshakable faith, pleasing him by every means possible, doing nothing even for an instant to disappoint. May my spiritual master impart to me every instruction and every teaching in its entirety. Having understood them faultlessly, may I practice them and be able to bring them to perfection. May I never even for a moment fall under the sway of malevolent teachers and misleading friends. Having developed in every life belief in cause and effect, renunciation, the Bodhi mind, and the pure view, may I embark upon them continually with effortless experience. In every life, may every virtuous act gathered by way of body, speech, and mind be causes solely for the welfare of others and for the purest and highest enlightenment. In the front pocket or the back pages, the prayer for peace and freedom. Due to the great force of negative karma amassed in past lives, in this life we Tibetans are undergoing great suffering. May all the causes for this suffering finally be consumed, and may the happy sun of freedom dawn above us all. The most salient supporting condition for the suffering of Tibetans are the Chinese, who are confused about what causes happiness and pain. May they develop great loving kindness and compassion directed toward us Tibetans and all sentient beings. We must recognize that for us Tibetans to view the Chinese as our enemies, and that them to view us with hatred and disdain, will cause ceaseless suffering for all concerned. Knowing this, let us have love for one another like the love between mother and child. Through the powerful reality of the three jewels and of relativity free of extremes, and through the powerful truth of the unwavering causality of karma, good or bad, may these aims that I have prayed for with a good heart come to pass right now without any hindrance. Returning to page 10, the first two verses of dedication prayers. Through this virtue may I swiftly, having gained Buddha state, place each and every sentient being without exception in that state. Precious supreme Bodhi mind, may it where unborn arise, and where born never decline, but increase forevermore. Now returning either to the front pocket or the back pages.
I promise soon we won't have to do this.
We'll recite praise of six-armed Lord Mahakala for our protector prayer. Whom, quick Ackling Avalokita, homage to you, when anklets you trampled Ganesha, Mahakala, you wear a tiger-skin loincloth, fully adorned with snake ornaments on your six arms. The first right holds a Drigu, the middle a Mala, the last plays violently a Damaru. The left hands hold a skull cap and a three-pronged lance, and likewise a noose which serves for tying up. Your wrathful mouth completely bears its fangs, your three eyes are fierce, the hair on your head blazes upward. Your forehead is properly anointed with Sindura, on your crown Akshobi's royal presence is fixed. You wear a great necklace of 50 human heads dripping blood. On your crown you are adorned with 5 dry jeweled skulls. You come from your tree and accept our Torma offering. Glorious six-armed one, homage and praise to you. Sternly protect the doctrine of the Buddha. Sternly praise the height and power of the jewels for us, teachers, disciples, and entourage. Please quell all bad conditions and obstructions and grant us quickly whatever cities we wish. To the Lama indivisible from the protector, I respectfully go for refuge. May I completely eliminate the delusions of all sentient beings. To the protector indivisible from the Lama, I respectfully go for refuge. May the obstacles of myself and all sentient beings be completely eliminated. To the Lama indivisible from the protector, I respectfully go for refuge. May I completely eliminate the delusions of all sentient beings. To the protector indivisible from the Lama, I respectfully go for refuge. May the obstacles of myself and all sentient beings be completely eliminated. To the Lama indivisible from the protector, I respectfully go for refuge. May I completely eliminate the delusions of all sentient beings. To the protector indivisible from the Lama, I respectfully go for refuge. May the obstacles of myself and all sentient beings be completely eliminated. Due to this merit in all my lifetimes, may I uphold the entire teaching of the Conqueror. Guru Protector, never abandon us, eliminate all obstacles to the teachings, and always accomplish conducive conditions. And the final dedication verse on page 10 in the phonetics. Think of the tune.
Everybody should know how you do.
Thank you.